Hey everybody, welcome to Pop Culture Philosophers. I'm Rockin' Robbie Billups, and it's time for the weekly comic book review. That's right everybody, thanks for checking out the video. I am Rockin' Robbie Billups. This is the weekly comic book review. It's the show where I read a lot of comic books, and I'll let you know what I thought about them. But first, let me remind you that you only have a couple of days left to get your hands on the exclusive Rockin' Robbie Reanimator cover. This is solely available on Kickstarter, and it's written by Cullen Bunn with artwork by Blackie Shepherd. And there are many covers available, but be sure to snag a copy of my very first cover appearance. The first time I've ever been drawn on a comic book cover ever, and it's part of the Reanimator franchise. I could not be more thrilled at this opportunity. So this is going to end very soon, so check it out in the link in the description below and get that Rockin' Robbie Reanimator cover. And we always start with the pick of the week. This week's pick of the week, Second Coming, Trinity, #1 from Ahoy Comics. Now this one is written by Mark Russell with artwork by Richard Pace. This book is phenomenal. Now this is the start of the third volume of Second Coming. If you are unaware of what this book is, let's just say in the first book, this is what happens. God, being disappointed in his son Jesus, sends him to Earth to learn what a true messianic and sun god figure should be in the form of, is it Omni-Man or something? No, that's Invincible. Anyway, it's a dude who's like Superman. So what if God sent Jesus down to learn how to be a messiah figure from Superman? However, Jesus has much more of an influence, not just on the world, but on Superman in particular. I love this book because as quirky as it is, as absurd as it is, it's got a lot of heart to it, right? It is making fun of things, it's having fun with stuff, but it never loses sight of what the true message should be of compassion and forgiveness. And it goes really into it here in the start of book 3 when we last left Jesus and the Superman figure Sunstar. That's his name, it's right there on the cover. When we last left Jesus and Sunstar, Sunstar had just had a baby, his very own child, right? So Jesus is kind of like the babysitter. Meanwhile, Sunman is testifying against his arch enemy Cranius, which is very much a Lex Luthor type figure. This book is so incredibly well crafted. Mark Russell knows how to have fun, to be absurd, but like I said, to have that sense of compassion, of humanity thread throughout this book. It tugs at the heartstrings, it makes you think, it makes you learn. I love this book. Sacrilegious to some, impeccably honest, brutally honest to me. I absolutely love this book, and I thought that Mark Russell and Richard Pace did a hell of a job of kicking off book 3, and I'm very excited to see where this is going to go and how it's going to develop. Then from Marvel, we've got 20th Century Studios. That's right, they got their own imprint now for Aliens and Predator and now Planet of the Apes. So Planet of the Apes, the rights have been brought over to Marvel. They have launched a new series that's written by David F. Walker with artwork by, I think it's David Walkner. I want to make sure I get the name right. Yeah, Dave Walker. And this was an alright book. Now, I have not ever been the biggest fan of the Planet of the Apes movies, but I've only watched the ones from back in the day. A lot of them kind of blend together in my head, but I do distinctly remember that original. I didn't like the Tim Burton ones, and I haven't seen any of the new ones. I think they're by Matt Reeves, and everybody always talks so highly of them, so I want to get into that. And from what I can remember, I was told, those movies, the newer ones, kind of tell the story of the rise of the apes, right? And that's kind of where we're at here. It's focusing on this one character and her involvement in trying to bridge the gap between humans and apes, but it's before all of the complete conquest and all of that stuff, right? So it's an interesting take on it. It's got some weird stuff structurally where it goes back and forward and then back and back and back and back and then forward. So it's got some weird kind of structure things, but I like the focus being on this character. So I don't know, I was kind of into it. I thought the artwork was alright. I thought the writing was pretty decent, so maybe I'll come back for issue 2 if it hits and drops on a light week. But Planet of the Apes fans might want to check that out. Then we got Amazing Spider-Man 23 here, Zeb Wells, John Romita Jr., continuing just to Like, what's going on here? Like, what's going on? Actually, I've been kind of down on this book. It's been kind of inconsistent. And what I mean by that is that sometimes it's really good and strong, like the Hobgoblin story or the Tombstone story, right? And then other times it's just kind of boring, dull, don't care about it. And that's what the last 2 issues were. We're promised this big revelation about this missing piece of information that we have about what happened between Peter and Mary Jane's relationship. Hell, what happened between Spider-Man's relationship with everybody? Well, they start laying that ground here. And it starts turning a little bit of a corner. I liked this a lot more than the previous 2 issues, but it feels like something we should have gotten sooner. I do love John Romita Jr.'s artwork. This feels a little bit more rushed, but it still is enjoyable to me. The story was more enjoyable than the previous 2 issues, but I still didn't think it was super solid or as solid as this book has the potential to be. But Amazing Spider-Man 23, all right. Let's see what you're going there. Venom, number 18. So Ron V is done with this title. We had him on the show a few weeks ago. Pretty much confirmed he's done with Venom, done with the symbiote stuff. So this looks like it's Al Ewing's thing to go, which means it's going to get weird. It's going to get cosmic. It's going to get metaphysical. And that's definitely what happens here in the pages of Venom 18. Another explainy issue where basically, this giant hand shows up and gives Eddie Brock 5 wishes, 5 questions. He answers them, and we now know a little bit more about how everything is related to the King in Black, what the opposite of the King of Black is, and just how Venom's journey is going to move forward into what it feels like is the final phase of this run of Venom, but we shall see how long they're going to have this going. We got the Summer Symbiotes event coming. We don't know what that really is. I'm kind of hearing the idea that it's just not one singular story, but a bunch of things going on at the same time. That being said, this is an interesting issue of Venom. I really like some of these concepts. It was a big exposition-heavy issue, but it didn't dull me out, didn't bore me. So I enjoyed some of those ideas. Then we got Rogue and Gambit issue number 2. It was a light, breezy read with some solid artwork, but ultimately I'm finding myself not really caring about the story. Now, granted, I'm not the hugest Rogue or Gambit fan, and I'm definitely not the hugest fan of Rogue and Gambit together. However, Kelly Thompson had done some recent work in years that I really did like, so I was excited to get into this. It's got some interesting stuff, and it was plodding along just fine until, well, Black Panther shows up, like, out of nowhere, and it's just, it got really kind of dumb for me in that moment, so I don't know, I just didn't really quite fit for me. And the artwork is all right, you know, it's pretty solid. This is not the one with, yeah, this is the one Black Panther shows up. I started getting really confused about, am I talking about the right book? But Rogue and Gambit number 2 wasn't as good as the first one. It is but it kind of fell apart for me at the end. Cosmic Ghost Rider number 2, though, really started losing me. I thought the first issue was pretty decent. We got Stephanie Phillips coming in, Juan Cabal on the artwork. The artwork feels really sloppy. Like, not that it's a bad line or anything like that, but that there's just not a lot of action. There's just not a lot of density to the artwork. It feels very flat. It feels very below average, and it doesn't have a level of excitement to it that Cosmic Ghost Rider should. So I do feel like the artwork kind of held this one back as far as the energy goes. The writing was all right. It was decent. It kind of got a little wonky towards the end, but it was decent enough to continue my interest if the artwork had a little bit more excitement. And maybe that could bring through more excitement in the script. But Cosmic Ghost Rider number 2, kind of a step down for me from issue number 1. Let's jump over to DC. I got Adventures of Superman John Kent, issue number 2. Really liked this issue. So Jonathan Kent, back in the day, a few years ago, when they did that story where he was taken away by Jor-El, and then he was kept captive by Ultraman for years and years and years. So we're reflecting on that pretty heavily. I think writer Tom Taylor does a really good job with the characterization bits in Adventures of Superman. And I wasn't necessarily the biggest fan of Superman Son of Kal-El, but this story is more like what I'm into. Multiversal type stuff. Basically, Ultraman's running around from universe to universe, killing every version of Superman so he can absorb their powers. It's like The One. It's like Highlander. It's like Nobody Gets Out Alive, the Paul Ryan, Tom DeFalco Fantastic Four story from the 90s station. But I like this one. I think it's pretty solid. Clayton Henry's not usually one of my favorite artists, but I do like it here. There is something about the way the movement is through the action in this book that I think is really exciting. Jonathan Kent starts experimenting with some new powers. There's some big twists. I really was into the ending. There was a reference to Deceased. It's Tom Taylor. It's Clayton Henry. It's Jonathan Kent. And it's Rockin' Robbie approved, I'll tell you that. Then we got Poison Ivy, issue number 11. I've been totally digging what G. Willow Wilson's been doing in the pages of Poison Ivy. Pamela's she's been trying to like tread this line, right, between evil and good. And in the beginning of this series, I was like, they're not putting the work in right now to make that believable, to make that relatable. Well, here we are 11 issues in. That's what they've been doing. They've been putting in that work. There is such a well-balanced representation of who Pamela Isley is, who Poison Ivy is, how this relates, how she's trying to have this road of redemption, but at the same time stand by her convictions and her ability to just do whatever she wants to take care of her goals. I'm really liking this book. I love the artwork. It gets downright psychedelic at certain times, straight up horrific at other times, sometimes the combination of horror and psychedelic, and I really do like that. So I'm enjoying what's going on in the pages of Poison Ivy, and if I had one criticism, it would be that I would love this story to have a little bit more room to go out and not just stay so narrowly focused on the whole, lambia spore mushroom thing, but at the same time, I'm all about that. So Poison Ivy number 11, I really like that. Then we got Flash 796. This is the conclusion to 1 Minute War, and I'll just say this, I'm glad. I've really loved what Jeremy Adams has been doing in the pages of Flash with Wally West, building up the Flash family again, and I love that focus. For this 1 Minute War story, for a whole story that's supposed to take place within 1 minute and then back and all this kind of stuff, it feels like this story went on forever, way too long, a very predictable ending, and to be honest with you, I found myself checked out of this story like halfway through, and the conclusion wasn't really that exciting. Like I said, ultra predictable, and it was just all right. But Jeremy Adams has been a really strong writer on the pages, or in the pages of Flash, I should say. There's only a handful more before Cy Spurrier and Mike Deodato come in, so I hope we can straighten this out and end on a high note, because for me, 1 Minute War just kind of fell very flat and slowed down the Flash. Then we got Batman 134. Yeah, I'm just not digging it. I'm not digging it. I like Chip Zdarsky as a writer. I think he's got an interesting take on Batman. I thought the Failsafe story was great. Mostly, for sure, because of the Jorge Jimenez artwork. I love Jimenez's artwork. I cannot wait for him to get back into the pages of Batman. Now, this is just Batman shunted off into like an Elseworld, another reality where everything's different. And yeah, I've been reading these things for a while, so it's been there, done that. If you're not familiar with that kind of story, maybe this is more exciting for you. I don't mind the story. I like these different multiversal versions of these characters and Batman struggling to find his way through it, navigate what is new, and try to find a way back home. That's interesting. The backup story with Tim Drake trying to find Batman, that's interesting. It's the artwork. It's the artwork. Mike Hawthorne is not a terrible artist, but he is not, to me, a very exciting artist, and definitely not the artist to follow up Jorge Jimenez on a flagship title like Batman. So to me, that just has caused this book to lose all kinds of momentum, and I know some people are still reading it and liking it, but what I've been hearing is that, yeah, it's all right now. We need Jorge back, and we need him back now. Like now, and don't let that dude go. Mark Miller, how much is he paying? DC, you can top that, right? Then we got Batman and the Joker, the Deadly Duo, book 6. This is issue 6. Mark Silvestri just killing it on the artwork. Absolutely killing it on this artwork. This is a Batman and Joker team-up book. They're both trying to save Gordon and Harley from this woman who's got all these like Joker clones and stuff. The artwork is so freaking awesome. Lots of detail. But I will say that the black and whites look better. For instance, look at that page. Soak that in. That's awesome. However, at the back here, we get the black and white of that. That's more awesome. That's so cool. This book has to be printed in a really nice hardcover edition, maybe with the colors and the black and whites, but most importantly, with the black and white original inked pages from Marc Silvestri. The artwork is great. Story's all right. Story's all right. It's all about the artwork there. I mean, it's Marc Silvestri. Come on. You know what we're talking about. Anyway, let's move on to Image. And from Image, we have Junk Rabbit #1. And this book was all right. It wasn't too bad, but it wasn't super good. So this is Jimmy Robinson's Junk Rabbit. This is a world, it's set in the future where the Earth has been completely overwhelmed by waste, by garbage, right? And so a lot of the elite have moved up into these space cities, and down in all these trash cities, that's where all the poorer classes live, right? And there's this like legend of the Junk Rabbit who, and they're like, if you go out beyond the domed city to save us from the toxic fumes, if you go out beyond the domed city, out into the trash heaps of the wild, there is the Junk Rabbit who will come and get you, right? That's a really interesting premise. And the characters are interesting in this book. And the world is incredibly well built. The only problem is, it's just kind of dull to get through. There's a lot of words. The artwork is fine, but it does feel just a bit stiff at times. There is something in this book that's holding it back. And what I think that is energy. There is lots of text-heavy pages with not a lot of exciting visuals going on, and it just kind of slows things up a little bit. But at the same time, there are moments where there's some really cool, interesting stuff being done in the artwork, like the backgrounds here being all kind of like sepia-toned and all dirty and gray or like brownish and stuff, and the main figures popping, and all the characters are well-rounded. The story's got a decent pace to it, aside from the fact that it just stiffens itself out. And I think if there was some more exciting visuals to go along with this, and especially in those super text-heavy pages, there's a way to have a text-heavy book flow appropriately, and it's just not quite clicking there for me with Junk Rabbit. So it was very interesting. So I'm intrigued with issue #2, because the way this book ends promises some crazy stuff. And when they get violent, they get violent. I just want to see a little bit more dynamism from that book, right? Then we've got Saga issue 63. What can I say about Saga? Saga does what Saga does, and it does it well. Saga is a really solid book. This is another exciting chapter. Brian K. Vaughan always gives us the sense of the story progressing and moving forward. The artwork is always stellar. I love the coloring. Fiona Staples does a great job visually telling the story. It's got shocking moments. It's got funny moments. It's got deep and rich moments, and that's what Saga does every single issue consecutively for 63 issues now, and it never fails to have an opening that's awesome and an ending that's captivating as hell and making you want to just binge through this series. If you've never read Saga, it won't take you long. You'll plow right through it. Saga 63, totally worth it. Then we got I Hate This Place, issue #7. I'm loving what Kyle Starks and Artyom Topilin are doing on this book. It's about this couple. They go to this new house. They get a new house in the woods. The woods are haunted, right? But one of the partners, their husband, or not, I fucked that all up. All right, let me tell you. The couple has gotten a house in these haunted woods, and one of the people, I don't know the gender actually. Now that I think about it, Anyway. What am I doing here? I like this book. I hate this place. Man, I'm struggling so hard to describe this right now. A couple, they're in a house surrounded by haunted woods with ghosts that are terrifying, giant spiders. People have been getting mauled and killed throughout this whole book. All right, one of them has a father who does not approve of their lifestyle and has come in and is worse than the monsters and the ghosts out in the woods. And the story ramps up, not just in the drama, but in the terrifying intensity of everything going on. Not just the monsters outside, but the monsters within. Okay, that was better. That was better. was tripping on that. I was like, wait a second, do I remember? I couldn't. Anyway, Stillwater number 18 is here. This is the final issue of Chip Zdarsky's book for now, because it does leave a little bit open where this world can be returned to. The ending was fine. It was decent, but this book lost momentum for me a while ago. Now, I don't know, and I can't really quite pin down whether it lost its momentum because the story just kind of started stalling out, or if it's because of the release schedule. This book would take big hiatuses, and then you would kind of lose your place in it, right? I don't think that's 100% necessarily the case. If I ever have time, I will try to read all 18 issues together and see how it flows. But Saga takes hiatuses and a hiatus. Saga goes on breaks and continues to have that momentum. Momentum was lost for me on Stillwater, so it was a decent enough ending, but it definitely did not finish as strong as it started for me. Then we got Nightclub, issue number 4, $1.99 comic from Mark Millar. That's pretty freaking cool. And the artwork by Juan Ramirez is absolutely phenomenal. There's a lot of energy, a lot of darkness. This is about teen vampires wanting to become superheroes, and just like every Miller book or every hero story, it starts off good, and then things get really crazy for our protagonist, right? And then we get that typical Mark Millar turn at the end of an issue 4, and it's going to take the story into a little bit of a different direction. I love the artwork. The artwork is the top selling point here, but I also do like the story. I'm starting to really get into these characters. I'm starting to get involved in their lives, and I'm starting to really, really enjoy this book. So Nightclub issue number 4 is here. Then we've got King Spawn, and King Spawn is the cover of the week. There are these Mark Brooks covers that are going to connect. And when I was thinking about which one to get, I had to get this Jonathan Glapion one because I love this cover. It's striking, and it does what a cover should do in my estimation, which is grab my attention from across the shop floor, draw me into it visually, and make me go, man, I want to open it up. And the cool thing about King Spawn is it's one of the best Spawn titles out there right now. Sean Lewis has been doing a fantastic job here, juggling all these pieces around, having it connected to old school Spawn mythology, and also to the new stuff that's being developed, and it's really fun. And this is the brain issue. Lots of brains. There's Salmon Twitch. There's some Terry Fitzgerald, there's some Al Simmons and Spawn, but lots of brains and dogs, and by the end of it, this was such a perfect setup issue where it's going, you're like, okay, so are we almost at the end of this issue? Is this where we're going? Then you get to the last page and you're like, bruh, King Spawn number 22 is going to be insane. And I can't wait to see it. From Dark Horse, we got a new one. It's Hairball, issue number 1, and Hairball gets the smell of the week. Hairball number 1 is a new one from Matt Kent, Tyler Jenkins, and Hillary Jenkins. This was an interesting book. It wasn't super easy to get into at first, but by the end of it, I was into it. So basically what this is, there's a little girl. She's been adopted by this family. The mother and the father are having major marital problems. They're probably both cheating on each other. They're probably both a bit alcoholic. And this girl's just stuck in the middle. She doesn't have any friends except for her cat. Her cat, who was a stray cat found on the same day she was adopted. But there's something weird going on with this cat, and this cat seems that it's willing to do whatever it takes to keep this girl safe, even from arguing parents. Love the artwork. Some of the best artwork I've ever seen from Tyler and Hillary Jenkins, and I really did like the story. If it's cats and it's Matt Kent, I'm gonna check it out. So check out this book from Cat Kent. Anyway, Hairball number 1, I really liked it, and that's that's almost a cover of the week right there too. Can we do co-covers of the week? Oh, we already did that before. We'll just give it to King Spawn. Jonathan Glapion. Inkers can do art because inking is art, and we need more inkers in comics. This public service announcement brought to you by Rockin' Robbie and Pop Culture Philosophers. Inkers matter. Inking is art. Anyway, Where Monsters Lie, issue number 3 is here from Dark Horse Comics. Kyle Starks, who is doing I Hate This Place, which is a book I struggled to describe, but this one is easier to describe, I'm sure, because this is about a community, right, like a cul-de-sac, that is populated by serial killers. Kind of similar to movie serial killers that we know and love, like a Leatherface or a Jigsaw or Jason Voorhees or something like that, right? And this book's been really fun and it's been wild. Basically, the cops have shown up and it just becomes a bloodbath of mayhem in the last issue. And issue 3 continues that. I love the visceral nature of this, but the artwork does start to feel like it's getting a bit rushed, and it doesn't quite have the sense of refinement that it had in the first 2 issues. So aside from that, it was still a solid book, but it did kind of held it back a little bit. Wasn't as solid as 1 or 2, but it was interesting enough. Very excited to see how the series is going to wind up. Then we got How I Became a Shoplifter issue number 3, the final issue of this series, which has been great. It's just a bunch of vignettes of these 2 friends growing up in the 90s and the early 2000s, that last generation before the internet took over and stuff. Different artists for each one. There's 3 little short stories in here. They're all funny. I really enjoyed it. Issue 1 was definitely the strongest, but 2 and 3 continued that momentum, and it ends in a way that sets up a new project that I am excited to check it out. So, Tom Brayfogle, you got my attention for sure, so I'm excited for anything you do, because this book had a lot of pop culture references that just warmed my nostalgic heart, but at the same time, you told a really fun story that felt like true youth. And that's a rare thing for people to do, is recapture the voice of the youth that they once had. You've done this. 100%. Coming from a 90s kid, for sure. I was in high school in the 90s. I graduated in 99, like, for real. That's it, right there. Then from Dynamite, we got Disney villain Scar, the start of a new series focusing in on one of the greatest Disney villains of all time, Jeremy Irons. Oh, no, Scar. Jeremy Irons is not, yeah, it's the guy who voiced Scar. I tried to make a joke there. Really terrible. Really terrible. What's not really terrible is this book. I liked this book. It's written by Chuck Brown, who's a co-writer and co-creator of Bitter Root. This is basically Scar gets messed up, has like this vision, and this is a story that's going to bridge up to the start of the Lion King movie, I believe, but it develops a little bit more of what's going on psychologically speaking with Scar. It doesn't quite hit that Shakespearean height that the Lion King does, but that's going to be a rare thing to achieve, especially in just a first issue. But I liked the art. I love Scar, and I am here for this 100%. So if you're a fan of Disney villains like I am, and you want to see a little bit more backstory on Scar, check this out. It was definitely worth it. Lots of covers to choose from, too. From Vault Comics, we have The Nasty. This was definitely a runner-up for Pick of the Week. This is from our friend John Lees with artwork by George Kambadias and Adam Cahoon. Jim Campbell on the artwork. This is a book about a kid who grew up loving horror movies, and he has an imaginary friend. His imaginary friend is his favorite character from his favorite horror movie, which is called Labor Day. So I love that reference. There's so many holiday-themed slasher films that the Labor Day one was just ridiculous. There's this line in here from the movie. Where is it? And this kid, by the way, when he's just like watching all this terrible gore happening, and he's just like, this is the most awesome movie ever. Yeah, that's me, right? But yeah, oh no, please, I'll never party on the anniversary of the cursed Labor Day parade again, I swear. It's great. So then it shows the kid growing up a little bit. He populates, because this is set in the 90s, he likes to hang out at a video store called like Monsterthon or something like that. And, I was thinking Monster Vision, but that's the Joe Bob stuff, right, from back in the day. Good stuff. Anyway, John Lees does a great job with this one. So the kid has an imaginary friend who's his favorite slasher from his favorite slasher movie, and now he's grown up. He hangs out with his friends at this video store that's not doing so well, and they're trying to make a statement by getting a video nasty, the biggest one of them all, like a forbidden film that nobody can get a hold of, and things are going to go crazy. By the way, still has the same imaginary friend as an 18-year-old. And there's a twist at the end that really gets you pulled into it. So I really like this book. John Lees is a big fan of horror. We've had him on the channel a few times. Check out those conversations. We talk about our love of horror movies, and you can definitely feel the influence and the love and the fun in The Nasty. And I love the references to the video nasty stuff that I know John had to personally deal with, and the banned film craze and all that stuff. Some of my favorite movies were labeled video nasties, like the Lucio Fulci stuff. Even the Evil Dead, the original Evil Dead, was a video nasty. So I really, really appreciate that. And if you're a horror fan, you definitely want to check that out. Then we got Codename Ric Flair, Magic 8-Ball, #1. This is a one-shot comic book from Scout Comics about Ric Flair. What if Ric Flair was a secret agent? So think of Confessions of a Dangerous Mind, but instead of with Chuck Barris? Instead of the game show host, imagine it's Ric Flair. This book was silly. The book was fun. It had a nice light touch to it. It had a very brisk pace. It had a nice setup and a wonderful payoff. I really liked this book. If you're a wrestling fan, if you love Ric Flair, this book is 100% for you. I had a lot of fun with this one. Like I said, Confessions of a Dangerous Mind, but with Ric Flair. That was the vibe and that was the feel, but it didn't take itself very seriously, and I appreciated that. Dream Master #4 is here from BlackBox Comics from writer Jonathan Hedrick. First of all, can I just say this? Jonathan Hedrick is one of the reasons why I had a fantastic time at MegaCon this last year. I cannot show my gratitude enough, okay? Jonathan is one of the absolute coolest cats out there. Meeting him in person, this was my second time meeting him. So cool. He's a buddy of Bueller's. He is a great guy, and he helped me out immensely at MegaCon, and I will always owe him my gratitude, for sure. But I don't owe him good reviews. So when I say that Dream Master is a great book, I definitely mean that. 100%. Dream Master is great. He is this character who's in the dreamscape, in the world of dreams and nightmares, and there's somebody trying to do some nasty business there, and he's got to fight for it. He's got to stop it, but there's lots of interesting repercussions of this. The book is great. The artwork is great. The pacing is amazing. The characters are great. The design of the characters is great. And talking to Jonathan a little bit about it this last week really got me excited for the future of this book. So, if you want to thank Jonathan Hedrick for me, go buy Dream Master. And if you can't find it in your local comic shop, check out the BlackBox website in the description below. Be sure to enter PCP10 as your discount code. You'll get 10% off. But definitely check out Jonathan's work, Dream Master, and The Recount. The Recount is phenomenal. There's the Recount and Trade. There's the Preamble. Definitely buy anything up you can from this dude if you want to say thank you on behalf of Rockin' Robbie. Then we got Breath of Shadows, issue #3 here from Rich Douek, Alex McCormack, or Alex Cormack. Why do I always try to put the Mick in front of it? And Justin Birch as the letterist. This is about a rock group. One of them majorly addicted to heroin. He's trying to find this mythical place in the South American jungle where there's going to be a cure for anything, including his addiction to heroin. But the band's problems start boiling over, and then what they find is way more than they were expecting. This is Rich Douek. This is Alex Cormack. This is their thematic follow-up to things like Road of Bones, Sea of Sorrows, now Breath of Shadows. It's not feeling as intense to me so far as those